In life, there are things that seem simple but are hard to do. And there are things that appear difficult but turn out to be easy. You see, it's easy to point out the mistakes of others, but hard to recognize our own flaws. It's easy to speak without thinking, but much harder to carefully choose our words. It's easy to criticize and judge others, but difficult to reflect and improve ourselves. And let's be honest, saying "I love you" is simple, but making someone truly feel loved, that's the real challenge. Every day, when you choose love, patience, and understanding, it's not a sign of weakness or retreat. It's because you understand a simple truth. Take a step back, and the sea and sky will open up. Show patience, and the waves will calm. The wind will soften. You choose sincerity, and you dare to speak honestly because you know that lies are nothing but temporary solutions. Truth and authenticity, though sometimes hard to say, are what solve problems at their core and leave no regret behind. My friends, learning to control your words and emotions isn't just an art of living. It's a key to unlocking a peaceful present and a brighter future. A wise person knows that some words are better left unsaid, and some thoughts, no matter how deeply held, should never be spoken aloud. So, what are those words? Let's explore them together and reflect on their meaning. First, don't speak ill of others. Once, there was an older man who had a habit of spreading rumors about people. Even though he didn't know whether they were true or not, he just enjoyed sharing whatever bits of gossip he had heard, whether they were confirmed facts or mere hearsay. In the same neighborhood, there was a young man who lived next door. This young man was well known for being kind-hearted, always willing to help others, and loved by everyone in the community. People spoke of him with respect and admiration, and he was seen as a role model for goodness in the village. Feeling envious of the young man's popularity, the older man began to spread a rumor that the young man was a fraud, that he was up to no good behind everyone's back. He told anyone who would listen, not caring how his words might affect the young man's life. Slowly, the rumor spread, and eventually, it reached the local police. The young man was arrested, but after an investigation, he was proven completely innocent and released. Unable to bear the harm caused by the false accusations, the young man sued the older man for defamation. In court, the older man argued that it was just harmless gossip and that it wasn't a big deal. The judge calmly responded, "Before I make my decision, I want you to do something. Write down all the things you've said about your neighbor, everything you've spread about him. Then, tear the paper into small pieces. On your way home, throw those pieces of paper out the window. Tomorrow, come back here for my ruling." The next day, when everyone had gathered in the courtroom, the judge asked the older man to go outside and collect all the pieces of paper he had thrown out the window. The older man was surprised and said, "That's impossible. The wind has already blown all the pieces of paper away. They've scattered everywhere. How can I collect them now?" The judge replied, "Exactly, just like the words you've spoken. Once they've been released, you can't take them back, no matter how much you want to make amends. Once the words are out, they've traveled too far, and they can damage someone's reputation beyond repair." Friends, in life, many people, driven by jealousy or simply a lack of thought, end up hurting others with careless words. But the greatest consequence doesn't just fall on the person who's slandered. It falls on the one who spreads the rumors. Over time, they lose the trust and respect of those around them. So, always remember, in communication, sincerity and caution with our words are vital, so we can maintain good and meaningful relationships. Second, don't point out the flaws of others. Everyone has their limits, their personal boundaries. Defects or private issues are topics that should never be brought up because they cause hurt, discomfort, or even resentment in the person involved. There's a story about Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, who was famous for his tolerance and his fair, generous approach to handling difficult matters. One particular example stands out when he dealt with Union General George McClellan, who was known to be very self-important and often made questionable tactical decisions during crucial battles. Although McClellan was a highly skilled military leader, he was criticized for his reluctance to aggressively attack the Confederate forces, which prolonged the war and made it more difficult. Many within Lincoln's administration wanted him to fire McClellan immediately because of the general's strategic shortcomings. However, Lincoln didn't criticize or dismiss McClellan at that time. Instead, he maintained an attitude of tolerance, trying to understand the reasons behind McClellan's decisions. One of Lincoln's famous quotes from that time was, "If I have a good general, I will do everything I can to keep him. But if he cannot defeat the enemy, I will find someone else to replace him." Lincoln didn't just focus on the flaws of others. He understood that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and that fairness and support are necessary to bring out the best in others. One time, when McClellan appeared indecisive during a major battle, Lincoln did not publicly criticize him, even though he was disappointed. Instead, Lincoln decided to give McClellan the opportunity to correct his mistakes. This not only preserved unity within the team, but it also gave McClellan the motivation and confidence to move forward. In the end, while McClellan was not the only one responsible for the Union's victory in the Civil War, Lincoln always maintained a tolerant attitude, judging his generals fairly and never being overly critical. So, let's not be quick to only see the flaws in others. Let's open our hearts to understanding and kindness. We will find that the world has many good things to offer, waiting for us to discover. Third, don't speak in long-winded, off-topic ways. There is a famous quote from Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician and philosopher. "All that is said should be said as simply as possible, and nothing more." This emphasizes that effective communication doesn't depend on saying a lot, but on how clearly and concisely you can convey your ideas. When we try to say too much, what we want to communicate can become unclear and hard to understand. In fact, the more we ramble, the more likely we are to make unnecessary mistakes. In today's world, where people's time and attention are always limited, the ability to express yourself briefly but fully is a crucial skill. When you know how to speak to the point and avoid unnecessary words, your audience will easily grasp your message. In fact, short, clear statements can have a greater impact than long-winded speeches that go nowhere. So, remember, less is more. Being concise and precise in your words not only helps others understand you better, but it also makes you feel lighter and more confident. Saying the right thing, saying enough, and saying it at the right time is the key to effective communication and leaving a lasting impression on others. Fourth, don't speak in a way that lifts yourself up while putting others down. One of the bad habits in communication is boasting or elevating oneself while belittling others. People who do this often lack humility and respect for those around them. In reality, humility is a noble quality, and those who are humble and show respect for others will always be loved and respected in return. In Western history, there is a famous story about an encounter between Alexander the Great and Diogenes, a philosopher who followed the Stoic school of thought. One day, as Alexander, the great and powerful ruler, passed by where Diogenes was sitting in the sun, he asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Diogenes, who was known for his simple lifestyle, looked up and replied, "Yes, you can step aside and stop blocking the sun." Alexander, amused by his response, said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Diogenes, with his usual wit and simplicity, replied, "And I would wish to be Diogenes, whether or not you were Alexander." In this story, Diogenes shows that true greatness does not lie in titles, power, or self-promotion, but in the wisdom of being content with who you are and living a life of humility. Alexander, despite his immense power, could learn something from Diogenes about the value of simplicity and modesty. This story reminds us not to fall into the trap of boosting our own ego by belittling others. True greatness lies in respect, humility, and the ability to uplift others without needing to diminish them in the process. Fifth, don't complain about hardship or boast about your success. In life, complaining about difficulties or bragging about success is never wise. Sharing your struggles isn't a sign of strength. Rather, it reveals a lack of ability to face challenges. Those who are constantly complaining about life's hardships often come across as weak and insecure. In reality, If you can overcome challenges on your own without making a big fuss, it shows you have inner strength and patience. Similarly, boasting about your achievements or material wealth is a sign of arrogance and a lack of humility. Sometimes, keeping a part of your success to yourself makes you more attractive, creating a sense of mystery that draws people in. It makes others more curious and willing to learn about you on their own. Just like savoring a fine wine in moderation, a person should know how to be humble and not make a spectacle of what they have. There is a story from the Gilded Age in the United States, a period marked by prosperity but also rife with boastfulness and competition. One of the most prominent figures of that era was Cornelius Vanderbilt, the founder of the railroad and shipping empire. Vanderbilt was famous for his wealth and power, but he was also very discreet about his fortune and business dealings. Despite his immense wealth, he never flaunted his success. Instead, he lived a relatively modest life, not seeking to show off, even though he could have easily done so. Another notable example is John D. Rockefeller, the founder of Standard Oil and the wealthiest person in American history. Despite his enormous fortune, he was known for his simple lifestyle and rarely spoke of his wealth. He was also deeply involved in philanthropy, often donating to the poor without publicizing his contributions. This humility and tendency to stay out of the spotlight helped him maintain a respected and admired image in society. The stories of Vanderbilt and Rockefeller reflect an important life philosophy in Western culture. Excessive boasting can easily lead to envy and resentment. Truly intelligent and successful people understand that humility is not a sign of insecurity, but rather a mark of maturity and deep understanding of life. So, rather than complaining about hardships or boasting about your achievements, we should learn to face challenges with dignity and humility. Only then can we build lasting relationships and gain true respect from others. Life isn't always easy, but calmness and humility will help you navigate through difficulties without the need to make a loud noise or endless chatter about it. There's a saying, everything in excess is harmful. This idea appears in many philosophies, particularly in Stoicism and the teachings of philosophers like Aristotle. In his work Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle argued that moderation is the most important virtue because extremes, whether in joy, sorrow, or pride, lead to suffering and imbalance in life. Extreme behavior in any form, such as achieving success too quickly or excessively boasting about one's accomplishments, inevitably leads to unavoidable consequences. Just like pouring water into an already full cup, excessive actions in any area will eventually overflow, signaling an imbalance. When success or achievements come too easily or are displayed too proudly, they often lead to personal dissatisfaction or resentment from others. Similarly, a well-known philosophy in Western culture is pride comes before the fall, or hubris as it's called in classical Greek literature. This term refers to an arrogant attitude where a person disregards the help or advice of others, believing they are invincible. The result is often an inevitable downfall or failure. In many Greek myths, characters like Narcissus and Icarus are perfect examples of individuals whose excessive pride ultimately led to their tragic ends. We can also see a similar example in Western literature in the story of Alexander the Great and Diogenes. After conquering vast lands and feeling as though he could rule the world, Alexander went to meet Diogenes, a philosopher known for his simple lifestyle and indifference to power or fame. Alexander asked Diogenes if there was anything he could do for him, and Diogenes simply replied, "Yes, you can step out of my sunlight." This response wasn't just a display of Diogenes' humility. It was a lesson that even the most powerful people can seem insignificant if they don't understand what truly matters in life: inner peace. There's no need for show or to seek validation from others. Therefore, humility and careful speech and action are always necessary qualities in life. Sometimes, remaining silent and maintaining a calm attitude is the best way to protect your peace and long-term success. Those who know how to listen and aren't quick to boast about their achievements are the truly strong ones, because they don't need outside praise to feel fulfilled. William Arkwright, in his book The Quiet Strength, said, "Eagles fly alone amidst the clouds with their wide wings, and they don't need noise to assert their presence. Meanwhile, Turkeys constantly stay on the ground, squawking and seeking attention from everyone around them. This quote emphasizes that truly strong and successful people don't need to prove themselves outwardly. They live calmly, quietly, and work effectively without the need for attention. So, let's live humbly and know what is enough. Happiness doesn't come from owning many things or bragging about accomplishments, but from inner peace, letting go of what isn't necessary, and keeping life balanced and serene. Second, excessive anger leads to disrespect. Anger is a natural human emotion that everyone experiences. What matters is how you express it. When you're angry, your mind becomes clouded, and you won't be able to resolve any issues. It only makes the situation worse and more complicated. An unresolved problem in the present will carry over into the future, causing more issues and making it impossible to solve unless you remain calm and take time to reflect. A person who cannot control their emotions, who acts impulsively, will also find it hard to succeed in anything. They may end up hurting others with their sharp, cutting words. Some people, on the other hand, may become violent and start smashing things or even hitting others. Fights often begin from uncontrolled anger. As we can see, the dangerous consequences of this show that anger, when left unchecked, can make you lose a lot, perhaps your money, your job, or even your relationships. Third, don't let sadness lead to despair. No matter how sad a person gets, they should never fall into despair, mental decline, or stagnation. Life has a rule: nothing falls from the sky. Behind many joys, there are hidden traps. When one door closes, another always opens. So, instead of sitting still waiting for things to get worse, stand up and take action. Success and failure are simply milestones that come one after the other, shaping our growth. Failure helps us gain experience, which ultimately leads to success and gives more meaning to our achievements. No one is always successful or always failing. No one is completely smart or completely foolish. Everything depends on your perception, your mindset, whether you think positively or negatively. As a British politician once said, "A pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty." There's a saying, "Failure is the mother of success," meaning that failure is a crucial step on the path to success. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of the famous Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, said, "We learn from our failures," which is almost instinctual for humans. Indeed, if a baby never fell, it wouldn't learn to stand or walk on its own. So, if you make a mistake and fail, what you should do is keep trying. Reflect on why you failed, and use that to improve the next time. No victory is as grand as the victory over oneself. If you don't realize this, your one failure will become a dead-end road. If you failed, whether little or big, doesn't matter. It's okay. It's just success that's being delayed. If you have a dream or a desire but are still afraid of failing, it's okay to hesitate, but don't let that stop you. Remember, failure isn't a dead end. It's just a detour you're bound to pass through. Fourth, don't be overly calculating to the point of losing sincerity. Everyone has a different perspective on life. Some people are content with their current situation, not because they lack ambition, but because they feel it's enough. On the other hand, some people value material wealth above all else and will do anything to make money. For them, everything is a calculation, even with their own family. People who are overly calculating tend to be selfish, petty, and lack calmness. They are often plagued by worries over the smallest things. There's a saying, "It's not that we have too little, but that we calculate too much." People suffer because they desire too much. We feel pain and distress because our hearts are filled with scheming and calculations. Don't let fame, wealth, or success consume you to the point where there's no way out. Don't measure yourself against others, calculating and competing, and end up losing yourself in the process. Don't feel cheated or deprived because someone else is happy. That won't bring you happiness and will only harm yourself. Even when we give to others, we should do so without expecting anything in return. The more we calculate, the more suffocated we feel. If you focus too much on something, it will torment you. What you calculate and obsess over will eventually disturb your peace of mind. An old man often went fishing by the river. He caught many fish, but every time he caught one, he would take out a measuring stick to measure it. The strange thing was that whenever the fish was larger than the stick, he would throw it back into the river. The villagers, curious, asked, "Other people try to catch the biggest fish possible. Why do you throw the big ones back?" The old man replied, "Because my pot is only as big as the length of this stick. If the fish is bigger, I can't fit it in." In life, many people let their insatiable desires take over their minds, while there are others who are content with just enough. This reflects the old fisherman's attitude toward life. When we learn to be satisfied, life becomes comfortable. If we overvalue every little thing, we can easily get stuck in the trap of calculation and obsession, only seeing the small, short-term gains and losing sight of the bigger picture. Life is often filled with stress and worry, making it hard to feel happy or at peace. The more we calculate and compare, the more joy and happiness slip away. A bow that's drawn too tightly will snap. Holding on to worries will never bring you peace or happiness. Therefore, don't be overly concerned with small calculations. Be calm and reflective. Avoid unnecessary competition. Don't chase fame or fortune. And open your heart to others. Don't be selfish or narrow-minded. Give generously, and you'll find you receive more in return. At the end of this video, I invite you to listen and reflect on the story of Socrates and the Oracle of Delphi. One day, the famous Oracle of Delphi, the priestess of Apollo, declared that Socrates was the wisest person in Athens. This prophecy intrigued many in the city, as Socrates wasn't known for his wealth or power, and he wasn't a famous scholar. However, these words confused Socrates. Socrates didn't immediately accept the prophecy. He didn't consider himself the wisest person. In fact, he humbly admitted that he knew far less than many others. However, what made him different was that he recognized his own ignorance. And it was this awareness that made him appear wise in the eyes of the Oracle of Delphi. In a very unique way, disagreeing with the oracle's prophecy, Socrates decided to test its accuracy by seeking out those he believed to be highly knowledgeable in Athens. He met with politicians, poets, and scholars, people who were thought to have great knowledge and power in society. His goal was to probe them, to see if these people truly understood the things they spoke about. In his conversations, Socrates often began with simple yet challenging questions, asking his interlocutors to explain and clarify their viewpoints. His questions were not meant to provide immediate right or wrong answers, but rather to make the other person think for themselves and realize the gaps in their own understanding. For example, Socrates once met a famous politician who was always proud of his knowledge and leadership abilities. Socrates began by asking, "Can you tell me how you know that you are a good person and a skilled leader?" The politician answered confidently, but through Socrates' probing questions, the politician gradually realized that he didn't truly understand the essence of morality and leadership as he had thought. Next, Socrates met a well-known poet. He asked the poet about his works and how his poems could make people wiser. After some debate, Socrates concluded that the poet didn't really understand the deeper meanings of his own writings. He was simply a person with surface-level talent. The poet couldn't clearly explain the ideas in his works and realized that he too lacked true understanding of what he had written. Through these dialogues, Socrates began to realize an important point. Even though these people seemed to be experts in their fields, they didn't truly understand the essence of what they were talking about, nor were they aware of the limits of their own knowledge. They considered themselves wise, but in reality, they were very vague about what they knew. From this, Socrates concluded that he was indeed the wisest, because at least he recognized his own ignorance. What's noteworthy in this story is that Socrates never claimed to be the smartest or boastful about his knowledge. Instead, he saw not knowing as a form of wisdom. Socrates believed that humility and awareness was the most important thing because only when you realize that you don't know everything can you truly learn and grow. His famous quote, "I know that I know nothing," is a testament to his philosophy. This wasn't just a humble statement. It was a profound approach to life and thinking about the world. Socrates didn't claim to know everything. He only acknowledged the limits of his own understanding. It was this awareness that allowed him to continually expand his mind. search for truth, and help others discover knowledge for themselves. The method Socrates used in his dialogues, known as the Socratic method, is an incredibly effective educational technique. Instead of providing direct answers, Socrates used questions to help others discover the truth on their own. This method encouraged participants to ask themselves questions and find answers through their own thinking and analysis. Socrates didn't just teach knowledge. He encouraged everyone to think for themselves and make discoveries. He believed that learning wasn't about absorbing what others said, but about uncovering the truth through your own thoughts. The story of Socrates likely leaves you reflecting on the humility and knowledge and the importance of recognizing our limitations. What do you think about the idea of knowing that you know nothing? Do you think this can be applied in modern life, where we are often caught up in proving ourselves? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear different perspectives from you. Thank you for following today's story. Wishing you a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.